The Liberals are in absolute total freefall collapse, and as a result, so is the Canadian government. They're trying to extinguish licensed gun owners, sport shooting, recreational shooting. They'll deal with the hunters later. This is how divide and conquer works. They're trying not to get everybody angry at the same time. They want to get a group angry, and then they run out of steam. And then finally, they'll come for the hunters last, and then they'll run out of steam, and all the guns will be gone. They are doing this to about 1 million Canadians, risking billions of dollars of property, destroying the relationship between law-abiding licensed gun owners and the government, and our relationship with the RCMP. They're willing to damage or destroy all of that. Why? Because they're looking for a bump in the polls.
World War III is already happening.
This is a house of cards, and it is in the process of collapsing right now.
You're going to see an economic crash, the likes of which we've never seen.
Hi folks, Canadian Prepper here. We have back again Rod Gil-Taka, who's the Executive Director of the CCFR. He's going to break down today the new gun legislation and the gun ban that's been put into place. He's going to talk about the good news and the bad news, which is mostly bad news, but there is some good news in terms of the work that the CCFR is doing. And before I let him do his thing, I want to say typically I'll only make my pitch for the guest at the end of the video. But I think this time around, it's imperative that we get the message out that we need to support the CCFR because they're the ones who are actually doing something tangible towards the end of trying to have any sort of firearm privileges that we have, getting those back. So you need to go and support this organization. If you know first responders, politicians, farmers, average Joes, lawyers, anybody that can help, you need to go and share the CCFR information with them. It's a very brand safe, unprovocative organization. They're not going to embarrass you. Share their information and support them in any way you possibly can, because now I think we're really at a critical point here. So Rod, can you explain the current semi-automatic gun ban for people who don't know anything about what's going on?
All right. Well, I appreciate you having me on, Nate. I appreciate it. Okay. So it's a bit of a disaster. So the government about a week ago came out with a new banned firearm list of about 350 models of firearms. That includes virtually every semi-automatic that you could put like a flashlight to or has a detachable magazine, pretty much everyone that was left in Canada. And I'll like to offer some comments on that in a second. Aside from maybe a couple, one of the ones that they decided to skip over was the SKS, but they promised to come out with a new list to scoop up the rest of them this February. And now this list also included a number of 22 caliber rifles, semi-autos, right? Actually, a large number of them. And included in them, just to give you an example, is the GSG 16. So, this is a 22 caliber rifle that shares no interchangeable parts with any other firearm and is chambered only in 22 long rifle at all. No interchangeable magazines with any other gun, all the rest of that stuff. Banned as a weapon of war and supposedly going to Ukraine to help fight the Russians. And then they also threw in a bunch of, I guess all of the semi-automatic 9mm carbines. So like the Ruger PC9 or the FX9, like these are literally sporting rifles, right? They're not good for conflict in any foreign war. They don't represent a disproportionate risk to public safety, nothing. They're trying to extinguish licensed gun owners. They're trying to extinguish sport shooting. They're trying to extinguish recreational shooting. And all they're leaving is hunting, because they'll deal with the hunters later. This is how divide and conquer works. So it was really devastating. So as I said, they're promising another list coming in February. Almost certainly that's when they'll do the SKS, right? They like to split it up. And they'll also have a whole bunch of, they'll include a wide variety of firearms that the RCMP now is going to declare as variants, right? Similar in some way, even in appearance, to the ones that they've already banned. This is how they operate. One of the other important things to note is, with this announcement, they came out to say, let me back up. Previously, what the Liberals had said is, here are all the banned firearms from May 2020 plus, and that was 1,550 models, plus the RCMP came along and they wanted in on the action. So they banned another 800 to 900 models because they're similar in some way, they figure, are variants of these prohibited firearms. Then there was nothing, right? For 2 years, nothing. No new banned firearms. They tried this thing with the amendments in their Bill C-21. They withdrew that because it was so unpopular. But they had said that they were going to form this committee, the Canadian Firearms Advisory Committee, and the committee would come up with lists of firearms, and that would include, like, supposedly us, right? The gun lobby and stakeholder groups and public safety groups and anti-gun groups and whatever, right? It's a big committee. And they're going to come up with the lists of guns that the Liberals would continue to ban using order in council, which should be illegal. But anyway, they're doing it anyway. That's kind of like an executive order in the United States. So not through legislation or anything, just executive order kind of thing. And then when they came out with this most recent gun ban, they said, oh, forget that. There's going to be no committee. It's a star chamber we've set up with the RCMP, who will go into conclave, basically, figure out what the firearms are that they want to ban. And then you just watch the chimney to see if there's like blue smoke or white smoke or black smoke. And then they'll come out with a list, and those will be banned as well. So that's sort of the current, car crash that is the Canadian Firearms Program.
So essentially all semi-autos have been banned. Any sort of possibility for variants, because there was ways to kind of get around it before, where companies would, custom make something for, Canada, but they've designed this in such a way and they've worded it in such a way that now pretty much all of those variants are on the chopping block too, possibly in February.
Yeah, well, there's a couple they skipped over, like the SKS. But as I said, for me, they put the SKS in that original banned list from the amendments to Bill C-21, and that was, what, a year and a half ago, 2 years ago.
Right.
And then that got withdrawn. They want to ban it, and they will. That'll be probably on the next list, but they're trying not to get everybody angry at the same time. They want to get a group angry, and then they run out of steam. Yeah. And they get another group angry, they run out of steam. And then finally they'll come for the hunters last, which will be a big bump, and then they'll run out of steam and all the guns will be gone. That's the idea.
It's a very insidious strategy, and I can see why they leave the SKS for last, because that one is kind of in a league of its own in terms of, you'll have First Nations people who tend to prefer that. You'll have a lot of, that's a lot of entry level shooters firearm as well. And it's also not the one of like the gun aficionados, they get those guys out of the way first, which probably will be the most vocal and the most resourceful in terms of fighting this, which is why it's imperative. I know there's a lot of high net worth people who watch this channel. I know there's a lot of very educated people who watch this channel. And I think it's just incumbent upon all of us to do whatever we can at this point in time, whether it's a monetary contribution or whatever sort of help that you guys might need, your legal team. You got a really good team of people who know the ins and outs of all of this, but the more people, the better. I mean, there's safety in numbers. Now, what might this gun buyback look like? Is it even practical, or is it just going to be something that they put out there and they never fully, commit to?
Well, let's talk about that. Just make a note that we have to talk about sort of the good news, what we're doing about all this. So I don't want to forget to come back to that.
Mm-hmm. So the gun buyback, they're saying that 756 million is what it would take just for the guns, as not
right.
The whole administrative process. But they're saying 600 million, but some people have estimated 756 million just for the guns. So, like, what is this actually going to look like, and why? Another question is, why aren't they grandfathering in the weapons like they've done in the past?
Well, that's really the real question. So this whole thing is very malevolent. To say that this isn't about public safety, like I've said that so many times, it's so tired, it's so boring. Like I think any objective observer knows that. Now, and the reason why I say that relates to what you're asking about the buyback. The Liberals are in absolute total freefall collapse as a political party, and as a result, so is the Canadian government. So is the NDP. They're in total collapse too. The whole thing is coming unglued. I mean, yes, just yesterday, if you look at what happened yesterday, very, very high level resignations, a deficit that is 50% above what they promised the deficit would be. So it's 62 billion. Like everything is coming apart. The Canadian dollar is dropping like a stone, and the government rolls this stuff out. So they're rolling it out for a very cynical reason. They know that they do not have the time to collect any of these guns. Maybe the retail guns, because that's super easy. But it's been 5 years since that original ban, and since they announced the buyback is going to be rolling out as soon as they can get it out. Half a decade ago, man. Okay, so they've done nothing on this file the whole time. The party's in free fall collapse. They're polling worse than they've ever polled in the history of elections in Canada, the Liberal Party. And so what do? They resurrect this. They always break the glass and pull out gun control, right? Gun control and abortion is the two big. If they're really, really hurting in the polls, they try to bring those out as issues again. So they say that they're rolling this gun buyback out. Well, this gun buyback is going to take probably, if it even was possible, maybe another 2 years. And they know that they don't have the time to do it. They know it's never going to happen. And they've spent $70 million already and haven't bought back a single gun. And they don't have the budget. They never budgeted the 2 to 7 billion. We don't know, but it's somewhere in there. Some people think it's about $4 or $5 billion it's going to cost to do the buyback. So why would they roll it out if they know there is no possibility this will ever happen? They are doing this to about 1 million Canadians, risking billions of dollars of property, destroying the relationship between law-abiding licensed gun owners, which tend to be productive, law-abiding citizens, and the government, and our relationship with the RCMP in particular, by the way. They're willing to damage or destroy all of that. Why? Because they're looking for a bump in the polls. Like, it is so cynical and so malevolent. I've been around over half a century, 55 years, and I don't think I've ever bumped into people that are this malevolent. Like, it's really, really remarkable. So all that to say, if you're a gun owner, I wouldn't worry too much. They're not going to get these guns back from you. All you have to do is sit back and wait. Store your firearms legally. You can't use them right now, so it's very inconvenient and it's very frustrating. Don't let them bait you into breaking the law. Just sit back. The Conservatives have promised time after time after time they're going to repeal all of it. And we'll make sure that they do, right? We have a good relationship with them. So this is all going to get rolled back, number one. And number two, the CCFR is rolling out a couple of things, and they're very significant. Can I tell you about those now?
Absolutely. Let's hear about it.
Okay. Number one, we had our day in court in the Federal Court of Appeals for our lawsuit. We originally sued 4.5 years ago, sued the government in federal court. We lost on all counts. And the decision was a really bad, scant decision. Usually there's a legal foundation of why the judge ruled against us. There really wasn't any of that. It's just like, this is what you said, this is what the government said, I agree with the government. And all the way through every count of this action. And so we're like, what is this? I have my own ideas why she did that, but whatever. It was a bad ruling and it was in error, legal error. We went to the Court of Appeals. We had our court date last Tuesday. So Monday and Tuesday, actually. And we have a good chance of winning this. If we win on the government's illegal and inappropriate use of using an order in council to ban billions of dollars worth of property and make billion-dollar commitments, it's not what orders in council or OICs are for. And we think that the court agrees with us. We'll see. We'll have a decision in between 1 and 3 months from now. But if we're right, those orders in council, including the one that was last week, they aren't legally valid. Now, what that looks like, we don't know yet. But that means that the firearms that you have that are now prohibited are no longer prohibited. So we don't know whether you can use them or not. We'll have to cross that bridge when we get to it. But the Liberals, there's a very good chance the Liberals are going to lose. And all of this is for nothing. So that's really important. We'll keep you updated on that. And
just a question on that.
Yeah.
If you lose that court case, will it be because the case that you had was not strong enough, or will it be indicative of, and we're not jumping the gun on anything because we don't know what the result is going to be, but would it be indicative of some higher level corruption or bias?
Well, I don't want to prejudice the court by saying too much there,
Right.
but
Yeah. I don't want to put you on the spot either,
oh
but
no, it's okay. It's okay because I'm all for reasonable conversations. Um, what happened in federal court was interesting. And one would be forgiven for thinking maybe there was a problem there. But the Federal Court of Appeal, these are not your run-of-the-mill lawyer that gets thrown a federal court seat, because they donated to this, that, or the other political party. These are high performers. These are not people that phone it in, right? So these are serious, and the panel was the cream of the crop. We had the Chief Justice of the Court of Appeal on that panel, right? There's 3 judges, which is pretty significant. And the 2 other judges that were on there were administrative law experts. It's the entire government's administrative law experts, these 2 people. So, because that's what this case is about. So I think they're taking it seriously. And I want to think that if there was any monkey business the first time around, they're not going to allow that kind of stuff to happen here.
okay. Well, that's reassuring.
And if we do lose this, by the way, we're going to have a look at that decision, and we will be applying for leave to go to the Supreme Court of Canada, because we promised in the beginning, like if it goes all the way to Supreme Court, we will take it there. If there's no way for us to go there, that's it for the OIC. But then our political solution kicks in, because the Liberals there's probably going to be an election in March, and the Liberals don't have time to do any of this, and they know that too, right? So these people are out of time. We're probably going to win this. So in Canada, we don't have a codified right to own firearms, to keep and bear arms, as it were. So it's really a public relations battle, and it is a legal battle at times. So political, public relations, and legal, really. So as an organization, as the gun lobby in Canada, we have to fight on all 3 of those fronts. So we have this legal battle, which is looking really good for us right now. I mean, anything can happen. I have no control over that stuff, but it's looking good. And that will be, we could really use a win, because we've been fighting this evil government for 9 years. And the political aspect is really shaping up nicely. The Conservatives have been polling for 2 years at clear majority, if not super majority status. Like no matter when this election happens, they may even achieve a super majority in Canada, which is unbelievable. They've never had that in the history of elections in Canada. So that's really great. So all that should get peeled right back on that front. And then there's public relations, which is attached to politics. Our goal at the CCFR is to make sure that the Liberals don't even have official party status after the next election. It is not good enough for me as a person, or the CCFR as an organization, for them to lose the next election and for the Conservatives to get a majority. We're doing a couple of things here. We want to destroy them as a party, because they've done so much damage to the country, not only on guns, but on many other ways. But we also want everyone in the political scene, of course, they already know this, but anyway, I just want to reinforce it, that when we say that we're going to do something, that we're going to do it to a shocking level, because you can't run around and tell people that you're going to oppose them, and they're like, yeah, they never do anything. It's all rhetoric. So we spent $2.5 million on that lawsuit, and we've taken it all the way through the Court of Appeal, and we'll go to the Supreme Court if necessary. And we have a massive political campaign coming. It's going to be, I call it Operation Pitchfork, actually, because it's got 3 prongs, and the commoners are angry, and we're angry, and we're gonna do something about it. So Project Pitchfork our Operation Pitchfork is coming. It'll be released, pardon me, probably the 3rd week of January, and we're gonna put 1,000, if not 2,000, activists to work, and we are going to really, really hold the Liberals to account for their record on all things, not just guns. It's really going to hurt them politically.
Well, I mean, that's, me, I'm a single issue voter with respect to this stuff now, because it's come down to something that I believe should be a God-given right. Even the police, I believe it was the Peel police chief, came out recently, and he said that 90% of the guns, the banned guns that come into Canada, or the ones that are now banned that come into Canada, are coming in illegally from the United States, and that there's a very high chance that the other 10% are also acquired illegally and used by criminals. So even the police, especially here in Saskatchewan and Alberta, the political class is well aware that this is just a bunch of nonsense, right? But this is where the whole malevolence thing comes in, because we're looking at a situation where 61 billion in debt. We don't have the money for this. Crime is rampant. Police response times are probably going down, which is nothing to say about the work that the police are trying to do. It's just, constrained budgets and all the rest. And then they're trying to take something away from people that has no correlation with their security. And it's purely, like you're saying, it's purely political. It's purely self-invested. And I have a feeling that it's all going to backfire. And like you're saying, I'm hoping that you've laid out the many possible safeguards or positive outcomes. Let's hope we win the case. If not, let's hope the political aspect, and let's hope Conservatives actually repeal it. We'll talk a little bit about what that might look like, but let's hope that if that all fails, then there's still the pitchfork campaign, I guess.
Well, it's rolling out regardless.
Yeah. So how do you think it's going to look if the Conservatives are able to walk back these laws that have been put into place, and what will that actually look like?
Well, we're not sure right now. Certainly, they can nullify an order in council that that the Liberals had put in. As I said, order in council is like executive orders, right? So you can nullify an order in council, even if that doesn't have the desired effect. The government possibly could file another order in council and say everyone who has these newly prohibited firearms can use them for the activities of hunting and sport shooting. And not like another amnesty, right? Not face any kind of legal risk for doing that. And that gives us all use of our firearms while we turn all this stuff back through legislation. And we've gone to the Conservatives and got them to promise repeatedly, not only that they will repeal all of the bans, right? But that they will do it immediately. So, and they've committed to doing it immediately. And that spawns a really important question a lot of people have. I get asked this. I've probably been asked it 1,000 times over the last 2 years. Okay. No exaggeration, 1,000 times. Do you really think Pierre is going to do that? Pierre Poilievre, the leader of the Conservative Party, can we trust him? And my answer is, I don't have any control over that either. I can only insist that he follow through with his promises. But he has promised over and over again that he's going to repeal all of these bans. He's done it in full view of the Liberals and the NDP and the Bloc Québécois and the two crazy Green Party people that we have running around on Parliament Hill collecting a paycheck. He's done it in full view of the media. He's done it in full view of his gun owners, of 2.4 million gun owners here, licensed gun owners in Canada, and said it repeatedly. So at the same time, he is only increased in the polls. So even if he's just a pure politician, right? That's all he's thinking about is staying in power.
Yeah.
The only thing that will happen is if he reneges on this promise, is he will lose support. He will lose standing in the polls. He will lose approval rating. And so he's not even motivated even by pure politics to string people along or to not follow through with this. There's no advantage for him. So if this was a centrist government, there would be an advantage to get the support from gun owners and then screw them over later. But there is no advantage for him. He'll only lose support. So I believe that on all these different fronts, he's going to follow through. Like I said, I could be wrong. I don't control everything, but I'm pretty confident of that.
Okay. Well, let's hope so. I mean, this is, I expected a much more pessimistic outlook, honestly, going into this conversation, but I think you said a lot of things that are reassuring, but at the same time, we don't want to rest on our laurels with this, so we got to keep the pressure on, and I like the approach of going all the way, because clearly that is their objective. When you look at the timeline of the erosion of firearms privileges, it's very subtle and insidious. And, every few years they roll out something new, and occasionally there's a step back, like when we had the long gun registry scrapped, but there's always this move towards less and less rights and freedoms with respect to this. So it's important that we keep the pressure on. And I guess the one thing that I would be worried about, somebody listening to what you're saying, they're going to walk away with this and think, oh, well, we don't have to do anything then, right? So I would just encourage people to, again, I hate to beat a dead horse here, but you got to support the CCFR. You got to do what you can to also just enlighten family members, friends, with respect to this issue. Is there any, I guess, advice you have for people right now who are concerned about this particular issue? Is there any other things that they can do on a personal level in order to help out the cause?
Well, I think it's important to get on our emailing list so that we can let you know what's going on as soon as we know, right? So we need to stay in touch with you. And we do the email thing a little bit differently. We don't spam anybody. We send one email a week, and maybe, I don't know, twice a year, you might get an emergency email. So if you go to firearmrights.ca, so that's firearmrights.ca or ccfr.ca, you can scroll down to the bottom. There's a little form to get on our email list. I would encourage you to do that. And then we'll send you that one email a week, and you'll also be plugged into everything that we're doing. And I do want to add one more, just to kind of reinforce something too, which is our project, Operation Pitchfork, as I named it.
You're gonna have to get a good logo for that.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Anyway, I like to say funny things, but I'm going to try to stay as straight as I can here. But there's a party kind of going up there, lots of imagery with the pitchfork. But I think it's important that no matter, as I said before, the Liberals don't have time to do any of this stuff. We're not losing any guns, this stuff is not gonna roll out. But we have to fight it right to the last day. And if there's not an election by the end of February, Operation Pitchfork will go all the way. And not just for the Liberals, not just to banish them from political life for at least a decade. It's also a demonstration of what we are capable of as an organization. We revolutionized, the gun lobby in Canada, and we've done some huge things. And this will be probably our biggest project ever. That and the lawsuit, $2.5 million lawsuit. Never before have gun owners had a legal action of that magnitude in the history of gun owners in Canada. So it's really important that we use this even as another demonstration, so that when I call someone up on the phone, I say, listen, you promised to do this and you didn't. And then you continue to not follow through. Gun owners want this. That conversation has to be taken seriously. And people only understand one thing, and that's action. And it is also about disarmament, right? There is a ruling class in every society that thinks that, they should have everything and everyone else should have nothing. So I don't get too into that too often, but it's just observably and objectively true. And honestly, it's past social engineering. Back, I think 10 years ago, we would have said, well, this is social engineering. It's way past that. It's wholesale disarmament. They don't believe that common people should have access to firearms. And they'll say ridiculous things like, this is how you stop mass shootings. I have studied mass shootings for 15 years. And if I really thought there would be no mass shootings, if we had a gun registry or we banned guns, I would probably agree with it, right? It's just, everybody, we all want to safer Canada too, just like Americans want to safer America too. But, it's, there's a reason why the whole gun control conversation is always hysterical and histrionic, and it doesn't make any sense. That's the reason. They don't have a real justification to take guns away from law-abiding citizens. They blame all of their failures on crime and chaos on law-abiding gun owners, because somebody's got to take the blame, and it certainly won't be them. So it's almost like you're dealing with a malignant narcissist, is what government is if it was a human being. So that's why we have to do things like sue them and, destroy them politically. And, that's the only thing they really understand. So, and I will just add one thing, is I agree that there is a cultural shift happening. A lot of the things that used to work on people, the cancel culture, let's say, that used to work literally 3-4 years ago, are not working anymore. People talking to people that they don't disagree with. It used to be, if you talk to somebody, you were guilty of all of that person's sins for the sin of talking to them. They all would transfer to you. All that stuff has run its course and people are rejecting it. Even people in the center and the center left. They're like, this has gotten us nowhere but furious at each other. So there's a lot of different moving parts that are happening. I believe, and I look at this stuff every day, just like you do, but I believe things are changing. And I believe the pendulum is already in motion. And I think we're going to be okay. We just got to keep fighting and make sure that people know that when we say something, that we're going to do something about it, that we mean it. And that those, it's going to be an overwhelming response. So other than that, I think we're heading the right direction.
Excellent. On that note, thank you for coming out today. And guys, be sure to go and support the CCFR. Thanks a lot, Rod.
Thank you.
The best way to support this channel is to support yourself by gearing up at CanadianPreparedness.com, where you'll find high-quality survival gear at the best prices, no junk, and no gimmicks. Use discount code PREPPINGGEAR for 10% off. Don't forget, the strong survive, but the prepared thrive. Stay safe.